Welcome back to Wrestling World. We have a few standout moments from Raw this week, so let's break these stories down involving Retribution, Bray Wyatt, and the news on the Thunderdome. So let's start things off with everything going on with Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton. So a few weeks ago, we thought we would be seeing Retribution versus Bray Wyatt, but that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. It looks like Bray Wyatt versus Randy Orton will be the new direction for Bray Wyatt and Alexa Bliss. The rumors about this feud first started going around after WWE announced a moment of bliss with Randy Orton. Alexa Bliss even tweeted out a response to the announcement with a message that had the word Fiend hidden in the tweet. So it was safe to assume what was going to happen here. We get to Raw and the Firefly Funhouse, and if you were paying close attention to the episode, then you might have noticed all the Easter eggs and references to Bray Wyatt's old feud in the background. One thing to notice was the constant mention of fire. We also saw an image on the wall of a shed on fire. This is a direct callback to Bray and Orton's feud from Smackdown Live in 2017. During that feud, Randy Orton lit the Wyatt family house on fire and burned it to the ground. Bray Wyatt also finishes Rambling Rabbit with the same branding iron that he used on Randy Orton several years ago. So there was a lot of little teasers there about their past. It was also great to see Alexa and Bray in their first official Firefly Funhouse episode together. The two of them were dressed as the Mad Hatter and Alice. We also learned that Alexa Bliss also shared the same interest as Bray for when it comes to picking on Rambling Rabbit as well. Alexa also now has pain, play, gloves, and shoes similar to the Fiend's hurt heel gloves. We also got to see more of Alexa's character. It seems like she'll be in this very playful, cheerful mood, which is where the play comes with her gloves. But don't forget she has pain on her gloves as well, so who knows what she'll turn into if she's provoked. We've only seen the play side of Alexa so far, so be on the lookout for that pain version of Alexa Bliss. But we get to the Moment of Bliss segment. Alexa has a new dark remix to her entrance music, and she brings out Randy Orton. Randy doesn't trust Alexa at all for the whole interview. It feels like he's going to get attacked by the Fiend. However, Drew McIntyre comes out and actually attacks Randy Orton while Alexa laughs in the corner. Then the Fiend comes out and stands behind Orton, but he never attacks Orton at all. They had a little moment there that made me wonder, does Bray Wyatt still have some control over Randy Orton? Orton was a little scared of the Fiend being behind him, but it looks like Orton enters a trance and starts marching directly to the ring to get Drew McIntyre. I found that moment to be a bit strange. Why didn't the Fiend attack Orton? And why did Orton just charge at Drew McIntyre like that? The way I saw it, I felt like the Fiend could have possibly taken over Orton for a second and influenced him to go after Drew McIntyre. Now, usually an idea like that would sound crazy, but you gotta remember that Randy Orton was a former Wyatt family member, so it makes sense that the Fiend could still have some sort of control and influence over Orton, even in the smallest of ways. It makes sense that Wyatt still has that connection to him. Orton will focus his attention to Roman Reigns at Survivor Series, which already sounds like an interesting matchup and story. But besides facing Roman Reigns, Orton has to worry about McIntyre, and now the Fiend coming after him as well. I love the Fiend being involved in this main event title picture, but I feel like it puts him in a weird spot. If you put the Fiend back into the title picture, you can't really afford to have anyone pin him. So does he win the title straight up from Randy Orton? That's the only tricky part for when it comes to the Fiend being in the title picture. He basically has to win. You're not going to have him get pinned. So it's either he wins it right away or we see a bunch of disqualifications for his title match. I hope this feud with Randy Orton doesn't turn out like the Fiend versus Seth Rollins in 2019, where WWE didn't want to take the title off of Seth Rollins, but they didn't want the Fiend to lose it either. It led to the horrific, controversial finish at this year's Hell in a Cell event. So that's my biggest fear here. What if we get put in that same spot again? Randy just won the title, but you can't really have the Fiend lose, so what happens there? I think that's the biggest question mark here. Drew McIntyre is still involved in the mix as well. So if it turns out to be a triple threat match down the line between The Fiend, McIntyre and Randy Orton, then maybe you have some more wiggle room for The Fiend to get out of that match without getting pinned. But we'll have to wait and see. Randy Orton had an interview from last summer where he talked about how he didn't like certain things from his 2017 feud with Bray Wyatt. But even back then, Orton did note that he did burn that house down and figured it'll only be a matter of time before The Fiend comes after him. Fast forward a year later after that interview, and we're seeing exactly that. The Fiend doesn't forget, and he wants his revenge for that house that Orton burnt down. Orton's story will be interesting in the coming weeks, though, because he's technically involved with Roman Reigns, Drew McIntyre, and now The Fiend. So the WWE Champion has his hands full. Has Retribution lost their momentum and push? This has been a question everyone has been asking on and off over the last few weeks about Retribution. They had their initial debut that received mixed reactions, but then Ali was revealed as the leader, and everyone said, let's give it some time to see where it goes. And after the last few appearances for Retribution, fans are once again wondering if the group has lost their momentum. Slapjack was destroyed at Hell in a Cell by Bobby Lashley. The Hurt Business then destroyed Retribution and had Ali scared and crawling out of the ring. Then the following night on Raw, we saw Retribution get demolished again in the match, and it was ended with Ali running off. So what's going on here? Reports claim that Retribution is no longer a main focus of Vince McMahon, and that they have moved on being really invested in Retribution. Of course, no one knows how true that is, but you look at the showings we've been seeing from Retribution and it just sounds true. This is supposed to be the monster heel faction, but every time we see them, they're getting destroyed and running off. When was the last time we've seen Retribution dominantly handle the Hurt Business and stand tall in the ring? The Hurt Business keeps mopping the floor with Retribution, so that's what has fans so worried for Retribution. Ali did come back later on during Raw and said it wasn't over, and that they can shut it down whenever they want. Of course, we don't know exactly what that means, but at least it gives us a glimpse of hope that big things are still on the horizon for Retribution. There's been a lot of conflicting reports about WWE's status with the Thunderdome. Originally, WWE was supposed to leave the Amway Center at the end of October, but they were able to extend their stay with a new deal. Now, there's been a lot of reports going around saying that WWE's last day in the Thunderdome would be in late November. It seemed like an official document, but other reports claim that WWE has no real date set in stone to leave the Amway Center. It's true that they've been looking around at other venues that could possibly host their events, but they will be remaining inside the Thunderdome for as long as they can. So right now, the deal with the Amway Center runs through November 24th. But as that day approaches, WWE will no doubt look to extend the deal if they plan on staying. But it looks like the Thunderdome will continue to be the home for the WWE for the foreseeable future. What are your thoughts on today's wrestling news? Leave your comments, don't forget to subscribe with all notifications on, and leave a like if you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, guys.